So I wanted to try something a little bit new here. I wanted to try reading letters from the front. I love reading the letters left behind by the soldiers and their families. They provide a valuable insight into the war not seen in the OAs or the after-action reports. So, without further ado, here is letter number 1 in the series. This letter was written by James Paxton Hart, the son of Judge James Gibson Hart and Isabel Moffett of Washington County, Pennsylvania. On March 28, 1781, Washington County was created by an act of the Pennsylvania General Assembly and named in honor of General George Washington. Carved from the western section of the Westmoreland County, it was formed to allow the inhabitants of the area west of the Monongahela River to have more convenient courts and public offices, rather than the inconvenience and hardship of being so far remote from the seat of justice. James was 26 years old when he enlisted as a private in the Ringgold Cavalry, which was later combined with other companies to form the 22nd Pennsylvania Cavalry. Serving with him was his full brother, John Thomas Hart, who died at Cumberland, Maryland on 27 April 1864. The origin of the Ringgold Cavalry dated to the Mexican War era, and when the Civil War began in 1861, many of its former members were middle-aged and carried obsolete weapons. It's been reported that when Captain John Keyes of Bealsville, Pennsylvania, petitioned Governor Curtin to reorganize the unit and put them into state service, it was rejected because Lincoln had only requested foot soldiers, and the task of supplying horses and arms for troopers was considered excessive and unnecessary. Not satisfied with the rejection, Keyes sent a letter to the Secretary of War, Simon Cameron, a friend of Keyes' father, and received approval for the unit's official recognition, but with the caveat that its members would be required to furnish their own mounts and weapons, and essentially no uniforms but what the men provided themselves. In an article published in 2011, Scott Beveridge of Washington, Pennsylvania, described the original Ringgold Cavalry as little more than an outfit of bushwhackers or cold-blooded guerrilla fighters, well suited for the task they were often called upon to do, which was to serve as scouts and guards, protecting Union supply lines and stores along the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. While the Ringgold Cavalry operated more independently than most cavalry regiments, personally, I think it's going too far to refer to them as bushwhackers. Clearly, they played a very important role for the Union in the Western Virginia theater of war. Camp Shields, Winchester, Virginia, March 21st, 1862. Brother Dave, I received yours on March 7th today. Also, one from Pap asking for particulars of Len Roberts' death. Lieutenant Myers will answer it soon. Myers also brought me one from Pap when he returned, for all of which I am truly thankful. Since my last, we have moved our camp, are now encamped on a nice lot in town. Captain Keyes arrived yesterday, and we now have the full team again after so long a time. This is the prettiest town I have ever seen. Is situated on ground just rolling enough to run the water off. It is regularly laid out, streets nicely paved, etc. There are a great many magnificent dwellings, and any amount of rebs. General James Shields' division started day before yesterday to find out the whereabouts of the Stone Fence Brigade commanded by General Jackson. Ringgold and Washington Cavalry were selected by the generals as good bodyguards. They proceeded 5 miles beyond Strasburg, had considerable skirmishing, but couldn't induce the Rebs to make a stand and die in the last ditch. The damage on our side was 2 slightly wounded and 1 seriously. They all returned last night. I was not along on account of being unwell for a few days. I have had nothing to do for 2 or 3 days but walk around town and see the sights, listening to the Massachusetts Yankees gassing and looking at the pretty girls. Most of them sheesh, though, and turned up their noses at a Yankee as quick as a cat at a hot dumpling. Lieutenant Myers and I were at the theater last night. They were playing Macbeth. The house was crowded. Performance only tolerable. I don't know how long we will remain here. A portion of the cavalry of Banks' division start for Centerville, some place between Washington City and Manassas tomorrow, but I don't think we will be included. Have no order yet. I think we ought to be pushing on and not allow the rebels to fortify. We are all well pleased with General Shields and think him a fighting man. I have not seen Banks yet, although he is in town. The 1st Virginia Cavalry are encamped about a half-mile from us. I have not been up to see them yet. The colonel is along, but I think he is not in command yet. Don't know the reason. All agree in saying that he has been relieved of the charges brought against him. March 22nd. I didn't finish yesterday, and since then we have had quite a fight. Today the Rebs made their appearance at about 3 o'clock on the Strasburg Road and got within about a mile and a half of town before our forces got out to meet them. We got out of town about half-mile when we saw them draw up in battle line on a hill, infantry, artillery, and cavalry. General Shields ordered our company to tear down the fence for our artillery. They had just got in and were unlimbering when the rebels opened fire on them. The second shot killed one of our artillerymen and a horse and wounded General Shields in the arm. The firing now commenced on both sides, and the shot and shell flew thick as hail. The fight continued until night put a stop to it. About dark, our company and Captain Greenfield's were ordered to cross the front Royal Road and proceed on it for several miles. We captured one prisoner belonging to Stuart's cavalry. The enemy has fallen back. It is thought that they have a huge force and will renew the attack in the morning. Let them come. We are ready for them. Shields is a fighting man and has fighting men to back him. The Rebs made some excellent shooting, better, I think, than our men did. The sheesh in town are in high spirits. They think Jackson will come in, certain. If he does, it will be over the dead bodies of many of Uncle Sam's sons. Banks and Williams' division left day before yesterday for Centerville. It is getting quite late, and I must go to bed and get some rest. I have a very bad cold and am not well at all. Was in bed all day until the fighting commenced. I will try and finish tomorrow. March 23rd. 9 o'clock p.m. 3 cheers for the Union. A hard and bloody battle was fought today. Uncle Sam's boys again victorious. The attack was renewed by the rebels this morning. The fighting was principally between the artillery until about 3 o'clock. We had 5 batteries engaged and the enemy about the same. They had excellent guns and handled them well. Between 3 and 4 o'clock, the infantry were ordered to charge, and then the havoc commenced. I will not attempt to describe it. The rebels contested every foot of ground and fought like bloodhounds. They had the advantage of positions all day, fought behind stone fences, trees, etc. Our men drove them back during the day, about 2 miles. At the last charge, which was at dark, the enemy broke and run, but it was too dark to follow. The cavalry was not engaged, were held in reserve, although they had positions from which the fight could be seen. One piece of woods that I rode through coming back was literally covered over with dead, dying, or wounded rebels, and a little further on a great many of our own men are lying. Among the killed is Colonel Murray of the 84th Pennsylvania. None of our boys were hurt. It is late, and I am tired. I will write more tomorrow. Can't write tonight. All is excitement. Everybody talking about the battle. March 24th. Our forces started in pursuit of the rebels this morning. I didn't feel able to go on a long march and remained in camp. A messenger has just arrived and says our forces had followed them to Cedar Creek but had not caught them. Another messenger says that Jackson has been largely reinforced and is laying just beyond Cedar Creek. Reinforcements from Banks' division had gone on today. A good many of the killed and wounded and prisoners lived in Winchester. There was a sorrowful time here today. I was at the depot today when they loaded 250 prisoners for Harper's Ferry. It was not worthwhile for me to give particulars. You will get them in the papers before this reaches you. I am in a hurry to get this in the mail, as I know you will be anxious to hear from the Ringgold Cavalry. I will write more at length soon. Am decidedly better today. Think I will be all right in a few days. Yours truly, Jim. A few notes here. John Keyes was a physician from Bealsville, Pennsylvania, and he was the captain of Company A, Ringgold Cavalry. He died of broken health at his home in Bealsville on 10 November 1863. Our squadron was ordered out under command of Captain Keyes to support one of Colonel Philip Dowan's batteries. While directing the battery to its position, General Shields was struck by a fragment of a shell, which fractured his arm above the elbow and injured his side. Captain Keyes and Greenfield, who were with him at the time, inquired if he was seriously injured, but the general made light of it and continued in command while his batteries vigorously shelled the enemy until it became too hot for them, when they retired. General Shields's wound was quite serious, and he was incapacitated for taking command the next day. The battle was a disaster for Stonewall Jackson's ill-advised attack. His army lost 740 killed, wounded, and captured, and over 22% of his force of some 3,700 men. Federal losses came to 575, just over 8% of the 7,200 engaged. I found this letter very interesting, particularly the parts where he describes going to town and watching Macbeth as the fighting rages on around him. It just highlights to me that this war, while we focus on the hardships and all that, that life in the both the Confederate and the Union cities tried to go on as much as possible, as normal as possible, and I just found that very fascinating. That the author of this letter pointed that out. It's your history. Learn it, know it, and love it.